Our investigation begins not with a grainy photograph or a mysterious light in the sky, but with the cold, hard text of American law. This is the document that by its very existence proves the conversation has fundamentally changed. It is the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. To grasp its importance, we must first understand what it is and who wrote it. This is not a leaked document, it is not a conspiracy theory posted on an obscure forum. It is a draft Senate bill, a formal piece of high-level government legislation. Its primary author was Chuck Schumer, who, at the time of its writing, held the powerful position of Senate Majority Leader. The involvement of a figure of this stature immediately elevates the subject matter out of the fringe and places it squarely in the center of national security and public policy. This is the leadership of the United States Senate, treating this topic with a gravity that was unthinkable even 5 years prior. The stated purpose of the bill is to mandate the transparent disclosure of government records related to unidentified anomalous phenomena. It aims to create a formal, structured process to declassify what has been hidden for decades. It calls for the creation of a review board, a panel of citizens with the security clearance to look at everything the government has and decide what can be safely released to the public. But the true bombshell is not in the bill's function, but in its language. Buried within the dense legal definitions of the text is a phrase that represents a paradigm shift in official government terminology. For the very first time in a document of this legal weight, the bill explicitly defines non-human intelligence. Let's dissect that phrase. The government is not just talking about unidentified objects anymore. It is creating a legal definition for the intelligence that may be controlling those objects. The word non-human is a deliberate and unambiguous choice. It is the government telling itself and the world that it must prepare for a reality that is not of human origin. The bill goes on to define this intelligence as any sentient non-human life form, regardless of whether its origin is terrestrial or not. This is a far cry from the dismissive explanations of the past. This is not swamp gas, this is not a weather balloon. This is precise, deliberate legal language designed to create a specific category for something the government has spent over 70 years officially denying. Why would they do this? Because you cannot legislate for something that you do not on some level acknowledge to be real. By creating this definition, the Senate is building the legal and procedural container required to handle the truth. It is preparing the system for the controlled release of information about technology, craft, and potentially biological entities that are not from here. This act is a preparatory measure. It is the government's own admission, written into the pages of a Senate bill, that the conversation is no longer about lights in the sky. It is about who or what is behind them. It is the foundational document of the modern disclosure movement, proving that the legislative branch is now actively preparing for a reality that the intelligence community has allegedly been concealing for generations. It is the legal system bracing for impact. If the UAP Disclosure Act was the legal system bracing for impact, our second document is the human earthquake that caused the ground to shake. This is the story and the official complaint of David Grusch. Before we examine his claims, it is absolutely essential to understand who this man is. His credibility is the bedrock upon which these explosive allegations are built. David Grusch is not a random person with a story. He is a man who spent his entire career inside the most secret corners of the American defense and intelligence apparatus. He is a decorated combat officer, a veteran of the war in Afghanistan. After his military service, he entered the world of intelligence. He was a senior official at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the organization responsible for analyzing the vast majority of satellite imagery and mapping the globe. After that, he served at the National Reconnaissance Office, the agency that designs, builds, and operates America's spy satellites. Crucially, for several years, he was the National Reconnaissance Office's representative to the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Task Force. His job was to analyze the most sensitive UAP data and report on it. He was an ultimate insider, tasked specifically with this portfolio. And in 2022, this man with impeccable credentials filed an official, unclassified whistleblower complaint with the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community. This is not an interview with a newspaper, it is a formal, legally protected disclosure made through official channels where lying would constitute a serious crime. The Inspector General, after reviewing the information, deemed his complaint both credible and urgent. This is a critical validation from within the system itself. So what did Grusch allege in this formal complaint? He claimed that for decades, elements within the United States government and its private defense contractors have been concealing a top-secret program. A program focused on the retrieval of crashed or landed UFOs. He alleges that this program has successfully collected physical craft of non-human origin. He states that they are in possession of multiple vehicles, some partially intact and some fully intact. The goal of this secret program, he claims, has been to reverse engineer this technology, to take it apart, to study it, and to learn its secrets, presumably for military advantage. The complaint goes further. Grusch alleges that this multi-decade program has been operating illegally, without any congressional oversight whatsoever. It has been funded, he claims, by the misappropriation of funds hidden deep within complex and classified defense budgets, effectively stealing money from other programs to fund this secret. And then, there is the most staggering allegation of all. Grusch claims that in some cases of craft retrieval, the program has also recovered non-human biologics, the bodies of the beings who were piloting these craft. This complaint is the document that triggered the historic 2023 congressional hearing, where David Grusch under oath repeated these claims to the world. It is the formal charge sheet of a cover-up, filed by a high-level insider. It provides the what and the who that the UAP Disclosure Act was written to address. It is the document that transformed the UAP topic from a matter of speculation into a matter of urgent national security and a potential constitutional crisis. Our first two documents show the modern American government struggling to build a legal framework for a truth it can no longer contain. But our next piece of evidence suggests this struggle is not new. It takes us back in time to a moment over 2 decades ago and gives us a shocking look behind the curtain of secrecy. This is the story of the Wilson-Davis Memo, a document so controversial and so explosive that for years it was the stuff of legend. To understand it, we must go back to the year 2002. At this time, the UFO topic was still deep in the wilderness. Publicly, the official story was that Project Blue Book had closed the case back in 1969. There was nothing to see. But this memo alleges a very different reality was unfolding in the shadows. The document consists of transcribed notes from a meeting between 2 very important men. The first is Dr. Eric Davis, a respected physicist known for his work on advanced propulsion concepts, including studies on warp drives and teleportation, often with connections to government research. He was a scientist with the expertise to understand the profound implications of what he was about to hear. The second man, and the source of the bombshells, was Admiral Thomas Wilson. It is impossible to overstate the importance of his position. At the time of this alleged meeting, Admiral Wilson was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. He was also the Vice Director for Intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In short, he was one of the highest-ranking and most powerful intelligence officers in the entire United States military structure. His job was to know the nation's most sensitive secrets. According to the notes transcribed by Dr. Davis, Admiral Wilson was frustrated, and he was angry. He explained that he had recently discovered the existence of a deeply buried, ultra-secret program that was dealing with the UAP issue. Specifically, he had found references to a program focused on the reverse engineering of retrieved off-world technology. As the director of the DIA, he believed he had the right and the duty to know about it. He demanded to be read into this program. He was stonewalled. He, an admiral in charge of military intelligence, was denied access. The reason he was given is the core revelation of this memo, and it provides the crucial blueprint for the cover-up that David Grusch would describe 20 years later. Admiral Wilson was told that the program had been privatized. It was being managed by a private aerospace defense contractor. Let's think about the genius of that strategy. How do you hide a program of this magnitude from the prying eyes of Congress, from proper government oversight, and even from high-ranking officials like Admiral Wilson? You move it out of the official government books. You turn a matter of supreme national security into a corporate trade secret. It becomes protected by layers of non-disclosure agreements, proprietary research classifications, and corporate lawyers. It is funded not through a clear government budget line that can be audited, but through opaque black budget contracts. The memo alleges that this private corporation was managing technology that was confirmed to be non-human. There is that exact phrase again. Not anomalous, not unidentified. The memo claims that in 2002, it was known to be non-human, the same term that would be formally defined in the UAP Disclosure Act 2 decades later. Now, we must be clear, this document is not without controversy. Admiral Wilson has publicly denied that the meeting ever took place. Skeptics have questioned its provenance. For years, it was dismissed by many as a well-crafted piece of fiction. But then came David Grusch. Grusch's official testimony in 2023 described the exact same structure, a secret, illegal retrieval and reverse engineering program hidden from congressional oversight and operating through private aerospace contractors. The Wilson-Davis memo now reads less like a wild story and more like a terrifyingly accurate historical prologue. It provides the how for the cover-up that Grusch revealed. It is a foundational document that, with every new official revelation, seems more and more like a genuine, explosive leak from the heart of the secret world. From the shadowy, controversial world of a leaked memo, we now pivot to its complete opposite. We move to a document that is cold, clinical, sanitized, and 100% official. This is the 2022 Annual Report on Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, issued by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or ODIN. To understand this report, you must understand its source. The Director of National Intelligence is the head of the entire American intelligence community. This office sits above the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, and all the other agencies. When the ODNI releases a public report, every single word has been meticulously chosen, debated, and scrubbed by an army of lawyers and analysts. It represents the collective, approved position of the entire intelligence apparatus. It is designed to reveal as little as possible, while remaining technically accurate. And that is what makes its admission so powerful. First, the report acknowledges the sheer scale of the issue. It states that since the previous report in 2021, they had catalogued hundreds of new UAP reports. This confirms that the phenomenon is not isolated or rare, it is persistent and ongoing. It also notes that the majority of these new reports come from United States Navy and Air Force pilots, our most highly trained observers who are operating aircraft equipped with the most advanced sensor technology on Earth. These are not unreliable witnesses, but the true bombshells are found in the carefully selected bureaucratic language. The report states that after analysis, a significant number of these UAP encounters remain unresolved. And then comes the key phrase: they lack a mundane explanation. Let's break down what that simple phrase truly means. It means the combined analytical power of the 18 agencies that make up the intelligence community has examined these cases. They have definitively ruled out all the normal, conventional answers. It is not a sensor glitch or an equipment malfunction. It is not atmospheric phenomena like ice crystals or thermal inversions. It is not a secret American government program. And, most importantly, they have assessed that it is not the technology of any known adversary, like Russia or China. They have eliminated every single mundane possibility, leaving only the unmundane. The report then adds another layer. It confirms that many of these objects are observed exhibiting unusual flight characteristics. This is not a throwaway line. It is a direct reference to observed and recorded performance that openly defies our known understanding of physics and aerodynamics. This includes things like instantaneous acceleration, moving from a complete standstill to hypersonic speeds in the blink of an eye. It includes moving at thousands of miles per hour without producing any of the expected signatures of propulsion, like a heat plume from an engine or a sonic boom from breaking the sound barrier. And it includes transmedia travel, the ability to move seamlessly from the air into the ocean without losing speed or creating a massive splash. No human-made aircraft on Earth can do any of these things. So, while the ODNI report deliberately avoids the explosive term non-human intelligence, it doesn't have to. Through a careful official process of elimination, it admits that there are real physical objects operating with impunity in our restricted airspace that are not ours, are not from any other nation on this planet, and which display a level of technology far in advance of anything we possess. It is the government's formal, public admission that it is confronting a phenomenon that it cannot explain and cannot control. We now journey back in time, to the very dawn of the modern UFO age. We leave the world of contemporary legislation and whistleblower complaints and travel to the years immediately following the Second World War. This was a time of immense global change. The atomic age had begun, the Cold War was casting its long shadow, and a new, bewildering mystery was appearing in the skies. The year was 1947, when pilot Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting gave the world the term flying saucers, and the phenomenon exploded into the public consciousness. It is in this historical context that we find our fifth document, a piece of evidence so volatile and so foundational that its authenticity remains one of the greatest debates in the history of this topic. It is known simply as the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit Memo. The document itself is a single page, a memorandum that is allegedly dated to the late 1940s. What makes it so utterly explosive is the name attached to it, General George C. Marshall. We must pause to appreciate the colossal historical stature of this man. George C. Marshall was the Chief of Staff of the United States Army during World War II. He was the strategic architect of the Allied victory. After the war, as Secretary of State, he created the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, an act for which he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He later served as Secretary of Defense. This was not just a general, he was arguably one of the most respected and powerful figures of the 20th century. His signature on any document commands absolute seriousness. The memo, addressed to the President, is brief, but its language is world-changing. It recommends the establishment of a special, top-secret unit to be called the Interplanetary Phenomenon Unit. Let's break down that name. The use of the word interplanetary is not subtle. In the late 1940s, this is a direct and stunning statement, suggesting a focus on something from beyond Earth. The word phenomenon suggests an ongoing and not yet understood series of events, and unit implies a formal, organized and funded government response. The memo goes on to explicitly state the unit's purpose, to investigate these interplanetary craft and to understand their non-terrestrial origins. There it is. In a document allegedly written just a few years after the Roswell incident, we see language that is a direct precursor to the non-human intelligence terminology used in the UAP Disclosure Act of today. It suggests that while the public was being told these sightings were misidentified conventional objects, the highest echelons of the government were already operating under the assumption that they were dealing with visitors from another world. Now we must engage with the intense controversy surrounding this document. Skeptics have mounted strong arguments against its authenticity. They point out that it is a copy of a copy, with no clear chain of custody back to an original. They argue that certain aspects of the typography and formatting are inconsistent with other government documents from that specific time period. It is, they contend, a clever and compelling forgery. However, proponents argue that it is the genuine article, the smoking gun that proves the cover-up began at the very start. They argue that it provides the only logical explanation for the intense and immediate level of secrecy that surrounded this topic from day one. It serves as the potential origin story for the deep-back, unacknowledged special access programs that whistleblowers like David Grusch allege have been operating in the shadows for more than 70 years. Regardless of whether you believe it is a genuine leak or a sophisticated fake, its importance as a foundational piece of UFO law is undeniable. It poses the ultimate question: was the government's entire public posture of denial and ridicule a calculated lie from the very beginning? This memo suggests the answer is yes, and that the policy of secrecy was established by the very men who built the post-war world order. After exploring a document from the contested history of the 1940s, we now return with force to the concrete, undeniable reality of the present day. Our sixth document is not a leak, not a memo, and not open to interpretation. It is the law of the land. This is the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2023. First, it is vital to understand what the NDD is. This is not some minor, obscure piece of legislation. It is the massive, complex, and absolutely essential bill that authorizes the budget and expenditures of the entire United States military. It is a must-pass law that keeps the armed forces running. The fact that critical, revolutionary language about UP is embedded deep within this act signifies that the topic has been elevated to the highest possible level of national defense concern. It is no longer a fringe issue. It is a core security priority. Contained within the hundreds of pages of this final enacted law is a provision that is nothing short of a legal revolution. The law officially establishes a secure and legally protected pathway for government and contractor personnel to come forward with information about UPS. To comprehend the monumental importance of this, we must first understand the terrible dilemma that faced potential whistleblowers before this law existed. For anyone working within the intelligence or defense communities, taking a security oath is a sacred and legally binding act. To violate that oath by revealing classified information, even to expose wrongdoing, is to risk everything: your career, your pension, your reputation, and your freedom. The oath was a legal cage. This provision in the NDDA effectively creates a key to that cage. It grants legal amnesty and protection from prosecution or reprisal to any individual who comes forward through the proper channels to share what they know. It is Congress officially saying to the secrets keepers, "We know you are out there. We know you are bound by oaths. We are now providing you with a safe legal way to talk to us." But what, specifically, is Congress asking these whistleblowers to report on? The language of the law is breathtakingly explicit. It grants this protection for individuals who are disclosing information about government programs, past or present, related to material retrieval and reverse engineering. Let's be perfectly clear. Congress, in a public law signed by the President, is not just asking about strange lights. It is actively soliciting testimony from people who have first-hand knowledge of programs that have allegedly recovered physical, non-human technology. They are asking about programs that have attempted to take that technology apart to figure out how it works. This language is a direct, unmistakable echo of the allegations made in the Wilson-Davis memo and the formal complaint of David Grusch. It is the legislative branch of the government creating a legal mechanism based on the premise that those allegations are true and that they need to uncover the evidence. Furthermore, the law designates a specific place for these secrets to go: the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARE. This provision is the legal battering ram that Congress built to break down the walls of secrecy that have stood for decades. It is a formal admission that they believe these programs exist and that they have been illegally hidden from their constitutionally mandated oversight. It is the government building the machinery to take back control of its own most profound secrets. For our final document, we must look beyond the borders of the United States. We turn our attention to a key NATO ally, a sophisticated, nuclear-armed world power, France. What we find there is a document that serves as a stunning piece of international corroboration, a report that reached a conclusion so bold that the American government is still unwilling to state it publicly today. This is the Cometa report, unofficially released in 1999. The context is crucial. This was not a government-sanctioned report in the strictest sense, but it was produced by an independent, high-level association whose membership reads like a who's who of the French defense and aerospace establishment. The group was called Cometa, an acronym for the Committee for In-Depth Studies. This was not a collection of civilian hobbyists. The president of the committee was General Denis Letty of the French Air Force. Its members included another Air Force general, an admiral from the French Navy, the former head of France's National Police, aerospace engineers from CNES, the French equivalent of NASA, and other top scientists and defense experts. These were serious men, patriots who had spent their careers at the heart of the French security state. Their mission was to conduct a deep strategic analysis of decades of UFO data, drawing heavily from the case files of Gipan and Cipra, the French government's long-standing official UFO investigation unit. Over a period of several years, they meticulously studied the evidence, focusing on the most well-documented cases that defied any conventional explanation. After this exhaustive review, they compiled their findings into a 90-page report, and in that report they reached a conclusion that remains breathtaking in its clarity. The Cometa report states, in no uncertain terms, that while many UFO cases can be explained, a small but significant percentage cannot. For these remaining cases, the committee concluded that the most logical, most rational, and most probable explanation was, and I quote, the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Let us be absolutely clear about what this means. This group of high-ranking French generals, admirals, and scientists formally concluded that we are being visited by intelligent entities from another world. They did not hide behind cautious language like unmundane or anomalous. They did not simply eliminate other possibilities. They named the source. The report analyzes cases involving flight characteristics identical to those described in the American ONDI report: extreme speeds, intelligent maneuvering, and silent, instantaneous acceleration. But where the American report stops short, the French report takes the final logical step. It states that these objects demonstrate a defiant, completely unknown technology, and that their presence and actions seem to be guided by a discreet but defiant strategy. This was not just an academic exercise. The report was a policy document. It ended with a series of stark recommendations for the French government. It urged the President and the Prime Minister to anticipate the immense consequences of this reality. It called for the creation of a high-level committee to develop a strategy, and it strongly recommended that France coordinate its efforts with its allies, specifically naming the United States, to prepare for a future that would be defined by this new reality. Why is this 1999 French report so critical to our understanding of the American situation? First, it provides powerful, independent, international corroboration. It proves that when serious, experienced military and scientific minds in another major Western nation analyzed their own data, they came to the exact same conclusion that American whistleblowers allege has been secretly held within the US for decades. Second, it highlights the profound difference in official posture. At the very same time that Admiral Thomas Wilson was allegedly being denied access to a secret American program, these French leaders were putting their names on a document that openly declared the extraterrestrial hypothesis as the most likely answer. The Cometa report is the bombshell conclusion from across the Atlantic. It shows that the UPP phenomenon is not just an American secret, but a global reality. And it serves as the ultimate indictment of the wall of denial, suggesting that the secrecy within the United States is not born of uncertainty, but of a deliberate, long-standing policy to conceal a truth that our allies had already dared to speak